הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, יא לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
Shabbat Shalom. It's good to see everybody. The lights are coming at me really hard, so I have to okay. It's absolutely great to share this Shabbat with you. It really feels like fall is in full swing. Oh, thank you so much. Even a little bit lower would be great. Just those, thank you. Oh, thank you so much. Okay.
You say it.
I know. I say it and it happens. It's amazing. My name is Rabbi Josh Caruso. Honored to be here with you tonight with my colleague, Rabbi Rob Nosenchuk, and with our cantorial soloist, Cheryl Eitman, and Marshall Griffith, providing beautiful music. Thank you so much. We have a really wonderful Shabbat Lech Lecha, tonight, which is very exciting to be here. That's what rabbis get excited about, Torah portions. So this week's Torah portion is Lech Lecha, and that is wonderful. Hopefully you all have a prayer book, so we are going to I want you to join with us in prayer and in song and spoken word, all of that good stuff. And especially tonight, we have a special guest, David Greenberg, who is going to be speaking about one of the great legends in American civil rights history, John Lewis. Rabbi Mari Chernow wrote, "Our names are closely associated with our identity and our individuality. To exclude the names of those who suffer from injustice is to participate in the oppression. It robs the innocent of dignity, denies the uniqueness of their stories, and belittles their place in history." Tonight, we're going to, in part tonight, of course, lift up Shabbat as we do each week, but we are going to lift up also the legacy of John Lewis. And his name alone brings to mind the unfinished business of justice. Lewis's memory is tethered to the memories and names of those whose lives were taken in the name of hate. Blacks, Jews, and a rainbow of faces fashioned in the image of the Holy One, and yet they were regarded as lesser than. Tonight, we lift up John Lewis's indefatigable vision for a world that was better than the one in which he lived. He made good trouble. We remain inspired by his example that we are a lamp for justice, and what we do and what we say matters. We remain buoyed by his message that justice must be lived and led every day, not only on the day we commemorate his life, and we remain compelled by the words of the psalmist, "Your word is a lamp to my feet, a light to my path." So together on the Shabbat, as we do every week, we have this incredible weekly holiday called Shabbat. We can lift up, as we do even in our liturgy every week, lift up the blessing, the challenge of justice. So may the warmth and the gleam of the Sabbath candles inspire us to walk along the path of justice, of love, and of peace. I'm now going to call on Susan Berger as we turn to page 3 to light the Shabbat candles.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we by our lives give light to all who behold us. As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we in our own day be among those who kindle light.
We are now going to move to our call to worship on page 28. We invite you to rise as you are able for Baruch Hu.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, Le'olam Va'ed.
We turn to page 33. As you taught Torah to those whose names I bear, teach me Torah too. Its mystery beckons, yet I struggle with its truth. You meant Torah for me, did you mean the struggle for me too? Don't let me struggle alone. Help me to understand, to be wise, to listen, to know. Lead me into the mystery. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivud Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
May be seated. We continue with V'ahavta, page 36.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכתך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Page 41. Sing the song of men and women joined in understanding and respect, the song of God's miracles, an earth protected and cherished, a gift for our children and the generations to come, the song of a land once ravaged by war, now quiet and content, her soldiers home to leave no more. Song of a world redeemed, the song of peace. Bichamocha, page 40.
מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נהדר בקודש. נורא תהילות וספלה, נורא תהילות וספלה. מלכותך ראו בניך, בוקע הים לפני משה. זה לי ענו ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד.
Page 45. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. We continue by celebrating the joy of Shabbat with Yismachu, bottom of 44.
ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. ישמחו במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. מקדשי שביעי שבת, כולם ישמחו ויתענגו מטובך שבת.
ישמחו במלכותך,
שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. בשביעי רצית בו וקידשתו שבת. חמדת ימים אתה קראת שבת.
ישמחו במלכותך,
שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת. זכר זכר למחסה בראשית שבת. זכר זכר למחסה בראשית שבת.
ישמחו
במלכותך, שומרי 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 שבת וקוראי עונג שבת.
We continue now with our tefillah, starting on page 46. We invite you once again to rise as you are able, 46 through 50.
אדוני שפתי תפתח ופי יגיד תהילתך. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, האל הגדול, הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים, וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לפני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה, רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה. החיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל.
You may be seated. We turn to page, let's see, we'll turn to page 60 for Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Ki Adam melech haTov lechol hashalom. Ki Adam melech haTov lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael amcha tasim leolam. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Each week at my home, we have a special challah board. How many of you have a challah board at home? Okay, like, and special for the challah, like you don't put Wonder Bread on the challah board, right? Like, it just doesn't fit. No English muffins on the challah board. So every week we have the challah and we place it on the board and we say the special blessings. And then, invariably, when Shabbat is over, Saturday night, sometimes on Sunday morning, I will put it back in the little drawer where it goes in until next week. Well, a couple weeks ago, life was busy, and somehow I woke up on Tuesday morning and the challah board with the challah crumbs, I'm a little embarrassed to say, was still on the dining room table. We had not really cleaned it up yet, and I think, yeah, the dog could absolutely take some of the little crumbs from it, and yet, so there was a part of me that was sad because it hadn't really, it's a little unkempt on the dining room table. Maybe some of you could identify with a moment when you forgot to clean up, okay? Or like it just kind of was a secondary thing. So Tuesday morning, I'm there, I'm seeing it, and there was a part of me that was a little sad to put away the challah board because Shabbat is nice. I enjoy Shabbat. But I had to remember that, 3 days later, I would be able to take it out again. And so I would have that joy of once again experiencing that challah board. And if that challah board stayed on the dining room table all week, every week, it wouldn't be as special. There's some things that we have to save, we have to put away, we have to place in a special spot. Maybe you have a Kiddush cup or something special, a yarmulke, something that you put away and you bring out for special moments. And so that's the beauty of Shabbat. It comes every week. We get to revisit it, and we get to sort of also long for it. We get to aspire to it. We get to look forward to something that's coming in a few days. And that's the blessing of having a weekly holiday called Shabbat. So this week, challah board's out. Hopefully I'll put it together, to put it away a little bit sooner, but it's okay if I don't. Maybe it just means that I want to hold on to it just a little bit longer. We all have those moments, those feelings of just wanting to hold on to a moment. So why don't we take this moment, hold on to it a little bit longer, as we sort of let ourselves breathe, listen to our bodies, think about the week, think about what we want to leave behind. Think about what we want it to be coming up this coming week. Give yourself the gift of that quiet moment. We pause for a few moments. Quiet reflection.
עושי שלום למרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom. Shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael.
We'll just pray the prayer that asks for the transcendent peace that may be heavens away, to be drawn imminent towards us. Ya'aseh shalom, make that peace come close, come near to us. We live in a world desperately in need of peace wherever we can get it, right? And it seems to me that that's what we're asking each week when we offer prayers of healing, asking for strength and support, not strictly to be delivered vertically, from the heavens, but imminently from our own hands, from our own hearts, from our words, from our meditations, our yearning to be part of what guides those who are struggling now with illness or pain or anxiety, with depression, with addiction, with so much that confounds us. May healing be in us, with us, near us. We ask God's blessing to come through us to Joan Friedman Eigner, Bernard Gordon, Arnie Hershen, David Isaacs, Yael Green, Vladek Nachsanov, Rob Pepsney, Tom Rito, Jared Rube, Shelley Schloss, Sarah Beth Sokolsky, Will Sukenik, Eric Zimmerman, and others whom, those of you who are praying with us online may be wanting to extend with us. If you wish to add them to the chat box, to our stream on YouTube or Facebook or wherever you may be streaming, there is power, as Rabbi Caruso said earlier, to lifting names aloud, to speaking them. And we invite those of you who are present here tonight, if you wish, to add a name that we might unite in one prayer of healing. Please do so as my hand passes through the community. Shelbrod. Baruch atah Adonai Rofei HaCholim. We praise you, God, source of healing. We continue with our Misha Berach prayer, found on page 253. We sing together.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who blessed the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. In addition to praying for healing, strength to be imminent, we're glad to acknowledge sweetnesses, happinesses, milestones, celebrations that are happening in the course of our congregational family and community. I want to mention Blaise Eitman has shared with me a special announcement that her opening show, her performance in Little Mermaid, occurs at Theater Agape next Friday, November 7th. She's very excited to share that with the congregation. I know I'm competing with my own business next Friday night, but it's the Little Mermaid, I mean, seriously. So we got to make sure that we want to celebrate, the opportunity to perform and speak and sing and do all the things that Little Mermaid reminds us of. I want to mention that this Shabbat, Sidney Johnson and Zohar Yamini are celebrating B'nai Mitzvah, and we wish them great mazel to them and their families. It's a special milestone birthday to our member, Neil Myers, who is celebrating his 95th birthday and is seated right back here to remind us what 95 looks like on Neil Myers. Gosh, amazing. He's in good company tonight because streaming with us tonight, and they are streaming with us really every week, are Stanley and Sally Wertheim. Tomorrow, November 1st, is Sally's 94th birthday, but Stan is celebrating his 98th birthday today. The two of them are kind of a pair. So Stan and Sally were so appreciative. Neil, Blaise, everybody who is marking a special milestone, what a joy to make that sweetness in your life ours, our community's happiness. And so we offer a shehechianu to this moment for all, and thank goodness for the opportunity for all who birthed and nurtured and supported and celebrated all of you. We join together in shehechianu. Sure.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
Thank you so much. Friends, it's a source of mazel, great joy to me to be part of Shabbat worship tonight and to welcome to Congregation Mishkan Or for his first visit, David Greenberg. David is, his punim has been in our emails for weeks now, but he's the biographer of John Lewis, and we had the tremendous opportunity to share his scholarship and his insights about Congressman Lewis's remarkable life story, example, lessons quandaries that it raises for us, with the City Club of Cleveland, who is our co-sponsor for his visit. David is a professor of history and journalism and media studies at Rutgers University. He's a commentator on so much. He's also the author of the book Nixon's Shadow and The Republic of Spin. God, there's two more great synagogue talks than that. I think it's important, in addition to all that Rabbi Caruso shared in testimony, to kind of why we not just yearn to connect with John Lewis's example, but why we need his example so much right now. I was remarking earlier when Mr. Greenberg got here that the fact that Congress is shut down for 6 weeks and we're here talking about John Lewis, it makes sense. We're here talking about someone whose example, not just in the realm of standing up for civil rights during the movement, but continuing the movement and allyship with our Jewish community that was in many ways a foundational piece of his work as a congressman serving the communities in Georgia, but also in our nation. I first encountered the example of John Lewis speaking when I went to the 1987 March on Washington. Of course, I wasn't alive for the one that John Lewis helped organize in '63, but I'm talking about the March on Washington to strengthen the case and speak up when Gorbachev was here on behalf of Soviet Jewry. And here was Congressman Lewis. I pulled up a note of some of his comments from that day that I was so struck by. He said, "Our message within the black community is one that is very simple. We are saying to President Reagan, Mr. President, tell Mr. Gorbachev to open the doors, open the gates, and let the people out. As long as one Jew is denied the right to emigrate, as long as one Jew is denied the right to be Jewish in the Soviet Union, we are all Jews in the Soviet Union." Such a remarkable example to stand up for that, to speak up at a time when not everyone was doing so. I also spent some time really reflecting on Congressman Lewis as part of really a reflection on the whole way that systemic racism has affected so many institutions throughout our country. And he was such a prominent voice in speaking out and aligning his speech with his example. I wanted to mention that I remember there was a radio interview of the late Congressman John Lewis, and he was reflecting upon Rosa Parks' example. Her yahrzeit is coming up the beginning of December. He said that when he challenged segregation in Alabama, his family members responded, "John, don't get into trouble. Don't get into trouble. Don't get in the way." That was just the way it is, he said. But Rosa Parks, he said, taught us how to get in the way. She inspired my generation to get in the way of racism, public policies that have embedded it within so many systems, but also when we are candid, brutally honest, as our faith calls upon us to be, gotten into our own hearts. How can we continue to rid ourselves of the ideals that are not based on the true equity and equality that we desire in this nation? I know I get the chance to speak every week. I'm done talking. I just wanted to say, in this moment, as we acknowledge on this Shabbat, Lech Lecha, really the opening part of the Torah, reflecting on there being a mission to a particular people. It was an imperative to Abraham to stand up on his own 2 feet, to get out of his father's example, and ultimately to be a blessing to the world. David, through your scholarship, through your writing, and especially around John Lewis, thank you for being such a blessing, and we look forward to hearing from you tonight. Thanks
Thank you,
again.
Rabbi.
You can sit just wherever you like.
Okay.
I'll make sure the mics are got you.
Sure.
Oh, thanks.
I'm just going to put this on so thank you. I'll kind of watch the time a little bit. So thank you all for having me. It's a real honor to join you tonight And I agree very much with the rabbi's words that John Lewis is someone who, although he passed away 5 years ago, feels very relevant to our moment, someone whose ideas and example is one certainly I, as his biographer, find myself reflecting on a lot today, but I have found as I speak to audiences about the biography that I've written, so too do many, many people. He's someone whose courage and whose determination to help America, particularly the Deep South in the Jim Crow era, get through a very dark and bleak and oppressive time and strengthen our democracy, and someone who not only believed that we could do it, but led the way, indeed as a very young man, toward doing that, provided hope to a whole people and to a whole nation, and gives us hope today, I think, that when there are other threats, new threats, some old threats coming back to democracy, that John Lewis's words and example of the human capacity to find strength to overcome, to not passively be resigned to the despair that comes from threats to liberty and equality and democracy, but the ability to push back and to fight and change them is one I think we can all sort of draw comfort and inspiration from today. And in particular, John Lewis, I think, would also be very sympathetic to what the Jewish people, Jewish Americans, are experiencing today, where on the one hand, it seems that the kind of liberal democratic structures that have allowed Jews to thrive in America are under threat from one direction, while in another direction, former allies and institutions that once saw Jewish equality and Jewish needs and concerns and the survival and defense of the state of Israel as part of their mission have been, at least to some degree, singing a very different tune. And John Lewis was really a lifelong ally of the Jewish people in all of these respects. And I wanted to talk just for a few minutes tonight about where that came from in John Lewis, how it revealed itself over the years, and how we might think about that legacy today. It's something of a remarkable fact that this man who was born 1940, dirt poor, rural Alabama, to this Jim Crow system, lived in a community that was really entirely black. They could go into nearby Troy, which was, they would see white people, but John Lewis said, he didn't recall seeing any white people till he was maybe 5 years old. That someone like him should draw such a close connection to the Jewish people. But in my research, I found him speaking to this on a few different occasions. And there were more than one sources of that affinity that he felt with the Jewish people. The first of it came from the Black Baptist tradition. And he talked often about how he grew up with the importance of the Exodus story and how there was a very strong identification in the Black Baptist community with the Jewish people. And he remembered, let my people go, tell old Pharaoh to let my people go, and the story of the delivery from slavery. And it was not just an analogy or a similar situation. It was one with which he felt, and many Black Americans felt, sort of an identity, a oneness. And so there was that very sort of positive association that he had. And then there was also the negative association, which is to say, in the Deep South, where he was born and where he grew up, the kinds of racism that they encountered, the kind of deep, systemic, regularized discrimination, was of a piece with a white supremacist worldview that also demonized and villainized Jews. And John Lewis said, he told one story of how in the town of Troy, which was sort of the largest city near, the farm where he grew up, there was a merchant who had a sort of general store, a department store by the name of Rosenberg. And he said he remembered as a boy going into town and hearing people talk about Rosenberg. And he said the way they said Jew had a certain derision to it. And he said, and pardon my language here, he said the way they said Jew was the same way they said nigger. And he said that too forged in him a sense that the fates and the situations of the Jewish people and the black people were intertwined, were linked. And I do think that the civil rights movement needs to be understood as one that, while of course it was focused primarily and centrally on the liberation of black Americans and the fight for equality for African Americans, it was also underpinned by certain universalistic values that very much in this post-World War II moment had Jews at the center as well, sometimes in a more muted, quieter way. But these were years in which, after the Holocaust, Americans were coming to see the horrors of anti-Semitism and coming to resolve to try to purge that or marginalize it in our own system. So for John Lewis, these were always closely linked. As a young man, he was a reader and he was interested in education and getting out of Troy and this sort of rural backwater where he grew up. And he knew that education was sort of his ticket out, a kind of sentiment that I think Jewish people often can sympathize with. He goes to Bible school, a seminary in Nashville. And there he falls in with the nonviolent movement that we all know, led by Martin Luther King, but locally led by other ministers, like a man named Kelly Miller Smith, a divinity student named James Lawson, who taught the local students and activists in the teachings and methods of Gandhi, fusing it with the social gospel teachings. And although this was a very Christian movement, John Lewis was struck by how much sympathy and support there was from the Jewish community of Nashville. It was something he remarked on. And he remarked, too, how in those early days of the 1960s, so many of the journalists who were covering the movement, covering it sympathetically and supportively, people like David Halberstam, Calvin Trillin, they too were Jewish. And he sort of kept noticing kind of the ever-present nature of Jewish allies. When he is one of the young leaders of the Freedom Rides, the interstate, the efforts to desegregate interstate bus travels in 1961, which brings on great violence from angry white mobs. It occasions a flood of support from the North as more and more volunteers come down to join these rides in sympathy. So many of them were rabbis, Jewish leaders, Jewish students. In disproportionate numbers, they came south to be part of the civil rights cause. And this was true 2-3 years later in Mississippi Freedom Summer, when there was the great effort to try to get blacks registered to vote in the face of violent and vehement white segregationist opposition. The summer, of course, when 2 Jewish students from the North were murdered in cold blood along with a black ally from the South while they're fighting for the black right to vote. And so this is something that John Lewis feels as a young man. You know, he's a leader in the sit-ins. He's a leader in the Freedom Rides, Mississippi Freedom Summer, even though he's 21, 22, 24 years old. A few years later, the civil rights movement takes a different turn. After the great, enormous, historic passage of the Civil Rights Act in 1964 and the Voting Rights Act, which John Lewis, through his heroism at Selma, marching over the bridge, once again showing remarkable courage and getting badly beaten, but helping to galvanize support for this. After those great landmark pieces of legislation are achieved in the mid-1960s, the civil rights movement faces a crossroads. And there are at least two factions. But there are those like John Lewis who want to remain true to the way of Dr. King and Gandhi and nonviolence, and who believe that interracial cooperation is really essential to the way forward. But they lose out, at least in Lewis's organization, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee, to the faction that is celebrating and encouraging Black power and Black separatism. And I found in the archives an account of a remarkable conversation that John Lewis has in the summer of 1967. He's now left SNCC, he's left the movement, he's actually spending a year in New York working for a foundation, trying to figure out what comes next for him, but he's back in Atlanta. It's just after the Six-Day War, and his former organization, the one he had proudly led for several years, for which he had represented at the March on Washington, has put out an anti-Semitic pamphlet attacking Israel after the Six-Day War, full of anti-Semitic imagery and cartoons. And John Lewis takes it upon himself to he remains friends with some of these guys who are still in SNCC, even though he has left it, and he gets into a heated argument with them about the importance of maintaining this Jewish-Black alliance and other alliances with liberal groups, with whites in general, because they have been so important to the movement. And it's a real moment of a break for John Lewis and some of his friends. Again, with some of them, he remains personally friends with them, even they have these stark ideological differences. And I found this moment to be, again, quite formative in John Lewis's political career. Because as he goes on into this remarkable second act of his life, one could have written a biography of John Lewis had he only achieved what he achieved as a student leader and as a young leader in the 1960s. But he goes on to this remarkable second career as a congressman for 30-some years and becoming really an American icon. And so at this moment where he's embarking on the new career, he has this understanding of the importance of interracial alliances and of the Black-Jewish alliance in particular. And when he's back in Atlanta, first as a city councilman and then later as a congressman, he is, as the rabbi said, acutely aware of the importance of the concerns of many of his Jewish constituents. It's a partly Jewish district, but it's a mixed race district, so he's getting it sort of from all sides. And he's there, he helps form what's called the Atlanta Black-Jewish Coalition. And it's really a model for groups. It's sort of a shame there weren't more like this in other cities. I mean, there were different efforts in different cities, but this was one of the most successful, one of the strongest that you see in the 80s and 90s and onward. And they will fight together, Blacks and Jews, for voting rights. They begin these pilgrimages to Selma that became a kind of regular feature that we associate with Congressman Lewis. He fights for Soviet Jewry. He fights for the defense and survival of Israel when it becomes under threat at times of war or terrorism. He's an unflagging friend and supporter, sometimes even as others in, whether it's the Black community or in the left wing of the Democratic Party, are starting to soften in that support or worse, turn against Israel. In 1991, I found he's actually quietly a key player in the effort to repeal the notorious Zionism is racism resolution that had passed at the United Nations many years earlier. John Lewis is the one who talks to the representatives of many African nations to try to get them to come on board with an American-led effort to repeal this vote. And we see this pattern throughout the years in Congress, even toward his final years, when once again there were renewed frictions. And there were members of the left wing of the Democratic Party who started promoting the BDS movement to boycott Israel, who started promoting arms embargoes or other kinds of punitive measures on Israel. And Lewis in Congress kind of reformed a black Jewish coalition and worked to try to get people to come together instead of engaging in these kinds of divisive projects. So it's a moment now, again, where I think many Jews are feeling relatively isolated, alone, sometimes perhaps betrayed by former allies or by groups who they felt they stuck up for during times of crisis, but who are then not receiving reciprocal support. And I think of John Lewis in these times and think of how he would have been a voice for repairing those relationships. There are, of course, many leaders in black politics who still hold that torch. I come from New York. We have congressmen like Richie Torres, Hakeem Jeffries, who I think very much believe in the continued importance of this relationship. But in other ways, of course, we see it very much under threat and in danger of some dissolution. But just as I think we can take hope from John Lewis's example when we think about the threats to democracy, I think we can also look to him as a source of inspiration, a source of comfort, and a source of hope when it comes to working together to find and repair the alliances that once helped America overcome significant injustices and, I believe, can do so again. So let me conclude there, and thank you for having me at your services this Friday night. Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
You see where I said I want this to be the first of his many visits to our congregation? There's so much to learn. The book, John Lewis, A Life, has been on display in the Commons on the cart that our Hartsmark Library has, and we're looking to get some more copies of it. It is now available in paperback, the author told me. So I just want to mention it's a remarkable volume, and there is so very, very much to learn when we think about being together and the principles. What kind of allies should we be? How can we, this is a big question being asked a lot in Jewish circles now, and I think somewhat highlighted by that isolation space that you described. What kind of ancestors do we want to be to our descendants? How do we want them to speak or regard the challenges that were happening to our democracy while we had the capacity to respond and to do something about it? I say this on purpose. It's good timing that we're here before one of the exercises in our democracy that remains, that it's a election day on Tuesday, and I encourage everyone to use their right to vote and to protect others' rights to vote and to respond to any disinformation in the way that Congressman Lewis would have sought. There is a prayer in our Siddur that even in the realm of gratitude for Shabbat says to us, and this is in the Mishkan Tefillah Siddur, disturb us, God, vex us. Let not your Shabbat be a day of torpor and slumber. Make us know the border of our sanctuary is not the border of living, the walls of your temples not shelters from the winds of truth, justice, and reality. Let Shabbat, let this time be a day to be stirred and spurred to action. Let's take some action. On this occasion in the Shabbat worship order, we continue with a prayer that reminds us of responsibility. The name of the prayer is Aleinu, which means it's on us. It's on us. And we rise for this prayer as I open the Ark doors, page 282.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל עמונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
I invite you to be seated. On page 293. One moment here, got to get myself to that page. On page 293, our thoughts turn now to those who have departed this earth. Our own loved ones, those whom friends and neighbors have lost, martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meanings of love, loss, life, and death. As a community here at Congregation Mishkan Or, we have a listing inside of your Shabbat supplement that includes these many honored names of so many in our histories of our congregations that have blessed us. I invite you to allow your eyes to rest upon those names with love and affirmation for their examples. And we acknowledge aloud these names, first for those who died in just recent days, our congregant Dorothy Schechter, who will be laid to rest, I believe, this Sunday. Our deepest condolences to Dorothy's family. And for those whom we're in the period of observing Shiva, Adele Fox Davis, Jean Foxman, Herb Goulder, Anne Pearl Rezebka, and those who were laid to rest in the last 30 days. This is a name I meant to add here to the list for everyone. I only caught up with the news this morning that earlier last week, Rabbi Arthur Waskow, a fighter for peace and justice and activism, passed away, and we're still in Shloshim for his marvelous life example. But also Dr. Susama Berger, Isabel Babs Kaplan, Esther Ida Post, Mark Paul Schumann, Francis Gellin, Roger Yadid, Morris Bauer, Michael S. Shanus, Jody Taslitz, Ken Vineker, and Ruth Daniso. We acknowledge aloud these names. These are names of those who our congregant families have reached out and asked us to lift these names aloud. They are yard sites, anniversaries of their death on this Shabbat. Edith Adler, Jules Amster, Rosaline Levitt Bamberger, Jackie Burku, Irving M. Bussey, Jean Cohn, Hattie Kolov, Arnold J. Eisenberg, Rima Rich Ganger, Lillian Gellis, Adolf Putty Goulder, Jane S. Green, Alvin Kate, Alan Lerner, Abraham Mobaum, Yaffa Mobaum, Lorna Gordon Myers, Carolyn Peskin, Frida Peskin, Richard I. Pollock, Harry Rich, Robert Joseph Thomas, Abe Waxman, Hyman L. Weintraub. Zichronam livracha. May the memories of all these we have lifted up be a blessing. If there are any names that were inadvertently omitted or mispronounced, I invite you to lift them up aloud or quietly at your seat. I invite you, if you are praying tonight in remembrance, to rise first tonight that we might know you and express our solidarity with you at a time of remembrance. And others who wish to, or for whom it is their tradition to join in the Kaddish praise. Page 294, we say Kaddish for all those who don't have anyone to say Kaddish for them. We say, Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chai chon v'yomei chon, uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala uv'izman kari ve'imru. Yehei shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam u'lalmei amaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudesha b'richu, ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, ta'amiran be'alma ve'imru, amen. Yehei shlama Rabbah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru, Useh shalom b'mamav, huya aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and all who dwell on earth. Amen. Please be seated, everyone. Now, this morning, when I came into the office, I was wearing my shark-eating man Halloween hat as a reminder that this is a day for play. And then I realized I have a get into good trouble, make good trouble hat. And I wore that for most of the afternoon until it was time to put this hat on. Who knows what I'll be wearing at the Oneg tonight? But I wanted to say that kind of reminders of what we stand for, who we want to emulate, that's important. And though during the course of the service, we didn't stop for Q&A, I asked Mr. Greenberg, who was kind enough to extend some more time during the course of our Oneg out in the Commons to join us and chat with us informally, and if there are more questions you have, and other sources to learn from. He's glad to be here, and thank you. And we're so grateful to the City Club of Cleveland for sharing this tremendous evening with us. It's my privilege to call on our board member, Jill Davidson, to share some words on behalf of our congregational board.
Shabbat Shalom. It's my honor tonight to share with you truly the richness that this congregation offers to all of us in terms of activities and educational opportunities, and to highlight a few for you this evening. On Sunday, November 2nd, at 3 o'clock is the Cleveland Cantors concert. There are still a few tickets left. Last year it sold out, so please don't miss out and purchase your tickets if you haven't yet. A new opportunity for us is on Wednesday, November 5th at 7 o'clock p.m. It is a new intergenerational teaching program. You can join Rabbi Klein and Rabbi Molbaum this month for a program called To Be a Jew Today, Intergenerational Conversations about Jewish Identity. It'll be a thought-provoking dialogue on Jewish identity. On Sunday, November 16th, we'll be celebrating the legacies of Rabbi Abba Hillel Silver and Rabbi Daniel Jeremy Silver. Dr. Susanna Heschel, who is an excellent speaker, will address the ongoing influence of the work of both of these rabbis. This is in partnership with Congregation Mishkan Or, the Western Reserve Historical Society, and the American Jewish Archives, and we hope to see all of you at one of these events. If you're new to the congregation, I'll be hanging out at the Oneg afterwards. Please come up and introduce yourself. Tell me a little bit about yourself, and I can tell you a little bit about this congregation and what it means to me and my involvement here over the last 20 years. Thank you. Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks so much for all you do for the congregation. I want to also thank all of our ushers, greeters, everybody who made the opportunity for us to be here tonight, our security guards and others who keep an eye on our congregation. And I want to thank Cheryl for being our soloist and singing so beautifully tonight, Marshall. And I just need your opinion. Is this appropriate for the concluding song? I don't know. The shark-eating man? I'm not sure if that works for Lechi Lach, which is our... Oh, there we go. We've got that one. Maybe I should save that for when I get home. Lechi Lach is all about being reminded, as Abraham was, to go forth and to be a blessing. And while you're out there, make some good trouble. Awesome. Let's sing together.
Lechi lach, to a land that I will show you. Lech lecha, to a place you do not know. Lechi lach, on your journey I will bless you, and you shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. You shall be a blessing. Lechi lach, lechi lach, and I shall make your name great. Lech lecha, and all shall praise your name. Lechi lach, to a place that I will show you. L'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, l'simchat chayim, lechi lach. You shall be a blessing, you shall be a blessing, and you shall be a blessing, lechi lach.
And now we shall make a blessing, but we're going to do it in the Commons. Follow Rabbi Caruso, and let's make Kiddush and Motzi in the Commons. Shabbat Shalom.